Hello.
Hey.
Hello, I'm Liam. I'm the head of IT operations here at Team Metalogic. I look after all things service and project delivery.
And I'm Mike Parfitt, founder and CEO here at Team Metalogic. And today we're going to be talking about compliance.
So, on the topic of managed compliance, I think when it comes to compliance, conversations with partners are becoming far more common, as is the need for someone to help. Why do you think compliance is so important when it's linked with a topic like cybersecurity?
If we're linking compliance to cybersecurity, we probably can't just talk compliance. We have to talk about some other factors that sort of sandwich around it, those being governance and risk as well. We tend to put that into a sentence where we talk governance, risk and compliance with partners. And so, let's start with what that is. The governance part of that really is our overall management and our oversight of cybersecurity. What's our plan, basically? The risk piece of that then is identifying, assessing and prioritizing any of those threats that might have an impact on our business's cybersecurity. And then, yes, the compliance piece, the adhering to the rules, the making sure that we are ticking all of those boxes to make our cybersecurity posture as resilient, as strong as possible. And I think, look, there's a need to measure, there's a need to manage businesses that we're working with, the partners that we're working with that are coming to us for advice. It's because they've got that need. They realize that they need to measure the governance, the risk, the compliance in their business and organizations, and they also need to be able to manage it. There's lots of elements to this now, lots of pillars. Businesses are considering confidentiality. They're considering the integrity of the data and the systems that they use and the availability of those systems as well. Those three things tend to all sit together as a concern, the things that keep business owners awake at night. And governance, risk and compliance helps them to sleep a bit better, I guess.
I think I'd be the first one to admit as well that, when the topic of compliance comes up, I think a lot of people think about these heavy sets of rules, these heavy data sets in the background, and it almost becomes an entirely larger topic point in itself. But how do we flip that? How do we go from making managed compliance something like a checkbox to fun obviously, but changing it from a checkbox to a mindset? How do we do that?
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's something that we really work hard to try and achieve, actually. And if compliance is a tick box exercise for you, you might as well not be doing it. It needs to be a mindset, and especially when it comes to cybersecurity, because it moves so fast. The threats in our business are always evolving. The risk factors in our businesses are always changing.
Yeah.
But also, an important point on that is that there are often overlapping frameworks. Compliance is a heavy word, but let's use framework instead for a minute and just say there's sets of guidelines or sets of rules. Going back to the compliance is adhering to the rules. So what the framework is setting out what those rules are. And there's lots of overlapping ones, and different businesses will have different needs for different frameworks, and some businesses will need multiple frameworks.
Yeah.
And that brings its own set of headaches for business owners. And Cyber Essentials is obviously one of the common ones that we talk about, C++. But there are others in the cybersecurity arena. You've got NIST, you've got CIS, you've got GDPR. Businesses might have ISO frameworks compliance, 27001s for information security, etc. And also then you might have businesses that take credit card information. They've got PCI compliance to adhere to. And certainly handling all of these frameworks, and not just as a tick box exercise, but making sure that the business has got buy-in. The people in your business have got buy-in. I
was going to say the word buy-in is very
and if you haven't got the buy-in from your people, you could write the framework. It goes in a drawer, and nobody adheres to the rules anymore. And what you don't want is for a framework to be in your business just as a CYA. It stands for cover your something. I'll let you work out what the last letter is. But if it's in a drawer and someone's going to it and thinking, oh, something's gone wrong, what should we do about it? It's not a framework for compliance. It's now a response plan.
Yeah.
So let's flip that on its head and say, what are the rules that we want to adhere to as a business? And no set of rules are infallible. No set of rules are perfect. No individual is perfect. But if we've got something to guide us along the way, we've got a better chance of adhering to those rules, a better chance of achieving the compliance piece, which then helps us in our battle against governance and risk. And mindset is really important, because if we tick all the boxes today for Cyber Essentials or for an ISO certification or for our GDPR review and audit, but then a week later something goes wrong, we want to know that a lot of the things that are in that framework were still being carried out on that day, so that our insurers are happy about paying for that risk, or that our business operations can continue to survive despite that risk. But also, I think it's an opportunity for us to revisit and to rethink a lot of the other processes and procedures in our business. And I don't think that has to be about cybersecurity either. And I mean, you do a lot of these. You spend a lot of your working week completing Cyber Essentials audits for our partners or for other businesses. So, I mean, what you must see examples of that where the questions that you're asking them to consider are then prompting them off on a little journey of discovery elsewhere.
Absolutely. You know, from a certainly from a more technically aligned perspective, whilst I'm doing these Cyber Essentials with, you know, our key contacts at our partner estates, you know, it is exactly that. You know, we're looking at data sets, we're looking at compliance, we're looking at security. You know, we're this kind of set and forget mindset, which might have been put in place, you know, many months, many years prior. You know, we're revisiting these topics. You know, and doing that, I think, in real time with these contacts is so important because it sparks further conversations. You know, we talk here about compliance being much more aligned with cybersecurity and the security strategies of these organizations, but when that extends outside of the business, what do you think that means? Or how can we talk more about that when, you know, when these practices extend out to the wider business or outside of that business completely?
Yeah, I think where you see it, where you see that happen is particularly in sort of elements of the business that you wouldn't naturally consider cybersecurity being help or hindrance to.
Sure.
A great example that we see with our partners in that is in competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Especially in regulated industries. If a business is in financial services or in healthcare or any industry that's got some sort of regulation behind it, cybersecurity is always going to feature quite heavily. But the cybersecurity will feature as a result of a tick box exercise against a framework. But if a business can go above and beyond the minimum requirements of that framework, if they can really show that they take it seriously, then they've got the opportunity here to have some competitive advantage over their competitor that might not be going to that level. And we see real examples of that. When we work with businesses that start to talk about cyber resilience instead of cyber risk, when they start to talk about cyber growth instead of cyber security, they're the conversations that usually end in that business seeing a return on investment outside of the cybersecurity remit in their businesses, because the things that they are doing are having a positive impact on the way that people work, their staff, their people in their business, the stakeholders are taking a security first mindset to what they do. And as a result of that, it makes the business better. And it applies to non-technical things. It applies to phone calls that they have. It applies to records that they keep. It applies to the way that they work in the office. It applies to the way that they interact on their own social media outside of the workplace. All of these things are a knock-on effect from a really good cyber posture. And looking at compliance as part of that means that everyone's got a set of rules that they think this is what good looks like.
Absolutely.
And we see great success with that.
Yeah.
Huge success.
I just want to touch on that, you know, on that security first mindset, you know, and businesses really adapting mindsets like that. Let's talk about some of the gray areas. We kind of touched on this on our last podcast, but mainly around bring your own devices, shadow IT, the areas of compliance that might need, you know, a bit more love and attention. So what are the risks with devices like that?
So personal mobile devices are a big risk for us. We talk a lot about how we combat those with, you know, great apps in our security stack like Trusted, but narrowing down on exactly what those risks are, there's probably 3 or 4 of them that are the real cause for concern. The first one, I mean, malware, malicious apps on your phone. And if we're talking about compliance and governance and risk, etc., a malicious app doesn't have to be a virus or ransomware. Yes, it can be something that is intentionally created to cause a problem or to steal data. But from a compliance perspective in the business, it could also just be an app that maybe the creators of that app are a bit free and loose with their own privacy policies. We all know about the, it's quite topical, but the current to and fro in America with the banning of TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok, a legitimate application used by millions of people globally, but there are concerns about the security behind using TikTok.
Yeah.
So much so that 2023 UK government bans TikTok from all its devices. There's a reason these things happen, and it's not because the app is malicious by nature, but because the security baked into it, or the implied security behind it, means that your data may not be as safe as we'd like it to be. So malware apps are the first one really that we've got to try and look at when it comes to personal devices, because by the nature of a personal device, you can install what you like to it.
Sure.
There is a thought process, a tendency to believe that Apple devices are more secure. That's largely because Apple used to vet all of the apps that went through their app store, whereas you could upload anything to Android and call it anything, and it could be masking something malicious. That's less of a truth now, because Apple have started to bring that walled garden down, and allow apps into the app store that might not meet those security criteria. But also, Apple, I suppose, lull users maybe into a false sense of security in that respect, because you then assume that because it's an Apple device, it's safer, but you still run the risk of becoming susceptible to phishing on mobile devices.
Sure.
And threat actors now are realizing that we, MSPs, IT providers, IT departments, we're throwing all the resources we've got at the laptops and the desktops to make sure that there's phishing prevention and antivirus and firewalls in place. We're protecting that piece of equipment, but we're not protecting as much, if at all, the mobile device. Certainly not the mobile device that belongs and is owned by the individual.
Sure.
And so they start to target that device. They know it's in our pockets. And so they'll use things like SMS phishing, and you get a text message to say, your password's expired, click here. When you click it, it's asking you to change your 365 password. On an iPhone, smaller screen, less real estate there. We don't necessarily maybe see the address bar that we're going to. We can't do the checks that we might normally make on our laptop. We don't hover over the links and see where they're going. We're a lot more susceptible to being compromised through a text-based phishing attack on our mobile device. It might be a personal device. It might be nothing to do with the business, but I'm still putting in my work credentials in that device. Within seconds, a threat actor has got them and is using them. My identity has been compromised. And as well as text messages, QR codes now are huge.
I was about to touch on that.
And we've seen it on the you've seen it on the service desk. We've had issues where people have gone to car parks, one not far from our office geographically, and they've gone to a car park. New car park has opened. Within a few days of this car park opening, they had quite good branding, big pink signs everywhere in this car park, pay by text, pay by QR code, and threat actors had literally printed their own QR codes and put them over the QR codes. The website that it went to was paybyphony.com as opposed to pay by phone. Just one I in there. I mean, the clue was in the name. It was telling you it was dodgy. But you just don't look. You're in a car park. You're trying to deal with the kids and the shopping and whatever else you're dealing with. You scan the QR code because it's easy. All of a sudden, you've paid money, not to the parking company. You probably get a fine in the post as well as a result of parking without paying for it. But the mobile device is the target for a lot of this stuff.
So simple and so effective.
Yeah, really is. And so protecting against that, really important, because if you're going to get duped by a QR code in a car park, you're going to get duped by a text that says reset your password. And then the final one, I think, in that piece is compromised Wi-Fi. If you're using your mobile device, you're outside of the office probably, or you're outside the confines of the network security that, again, we're putting in place. And so making sure that if you're sat in McDonald's or Starbucks or an airport departures lounge or wherever it might be that you're on public Wi-Fi, it's making sure that that Wi-Fi is safe. And one of the key problems with public Wi-Fi is the threat of what we call man-in-the-middle attacks. And it's where somebody is literally sat there with a laptop intercepting all of the traffic that is happening on this. So when you're putting passwords in, they're just appearing on their screen right opposite you. And so, yes, BYOD, a big problem, and largely for those three reasons. It's the malicious apps that install on them. It's the risk of phishing and the lack of protection that we often put on those devices, the lack of management, the fact that we don't even know they exist a lot of the time, and the fact that they are used in what could potentially be really unsafe environments.
Okay, so on the topic of compliance then, obviously quite a lot to digest there. Let's look at some of the some of the platforms that we use and that we can provide around compliance. We touched on Cyber Essentials, Cyber Essentials Plus, the aid that sometimes bring, not only for the business to obtain the certification, but all of the nice things that come around that, the compliance reviews, the data set reviews. What other products have we got in our catalog currently that we can add on top of CE and CE?
Yeah, and I think what we talk about is the reason for those other products. And we talk CE Plus a lot because it's a cybersecurity framework, and it's a cybersecurity framework that fits our customers, doesn't it? If you're a business with under 200-300 people, or even under 500 people, CE and CE Plus are kind of must-haves.
I like to think of CE and CE Plus. The need for that always comes externally, which I find quite interesting. So people often come to me and say, hey, we're looking to broker this deal with a third-party provider. They've told us that we need CE, we need CE plus. Some of the other products I think that we can advise on, are often recommendations from us internally, as opposed to somebody saying, hey, you need this to comply with this.
Yeah, and from a business strategy perspective, there's definitely that difference of opinion. I think a business might go down the ISO route, because it's a quality mark, or it's something very significant. It's quite difficult to achieve. It's quite expensive to achieve. It puts it out of budget for a lot of small businesses.
It does.
But it's usually an internal strategic decision to go down that ISO route. What's it going to do for us as a business from information management, information security perspective? Whereas, like you said, Cyber Essentials, it's usually, we're tendering for this contract. They've told us that we've got to have Cyber Essentials. Or, what often happens is we've tendered for this contract and we've told them we've got Cyber Essentials. How fast can you get it for us? But what it is great for, isn't it? Is it starts that conversation. It starts that thought process about cybersecurity. And it's a great badge to have. It's a great badge that says, do you know what? There's a government framework in the UK, and if I've got that badge, I adhere to that framework, the set of rules that we're complying to, and that says to you as a customer, or you as a supplier, or a stakeholder in my business, that I take cybersecurity seriously. I've given it some thought, at least. And I've tried to put things in place to mitigate some of the key risks. But Cyber Essentials isn't the only one. And the really important thing is that whilst there are lots of frameworks for lots of different things, there's lots for cybersecurity. I talked earlier about NIST and CIS controls. But you've also got GDPR. You've also got things for, like, the ISOs, obviously, but you've also got PCI compliance. So if you take credit cards, store credit card numbers, PCI compliance is the framework that you adhere to that says, I'm going to keep them safe. And lots of these frameworks overlap. The questions that you're asked in Cyber Essentials will appear in the questioning that you're asked for an ISO 27001. Some of the questions in Cyber Essentials will be about data protection and their GDPR-ish type questions. Some of the questions are not even about really cybersecurity. They're about physical controls. Do you lock your doors at night? So the products that we've got are, if you like, compliance as a platform tools. They are largely, one of the key products here is a platform, a portal that you can log into and manage all of these frameworks, whichever ones are right for your business. But do it really efficiently. So if we start with Cyber Essentials, let's complete Cyber Essentials, and we can work with the partner and the customer in that platform to get their Cyber Essentials done. We get the certification. That's great.
It's a great building block, and it's a good place.
But then straight away we can say, do you know what? The next thing we want to look at is CIS controls, or the next thing we want to look at is an ISO 27001. We enable that framework in the portal, and straight away it's going to take everything in Cyber Essentials that applies to that new framework and tick the boxes and put the narrative in place for us. And then instead of having to start ISO 27001 at 0%, maybe we're starting it at 12% or 25%. So it's a great place for managing all of those frameworks and keeping them together and understanding that they will overlap and where they fit against each other. And it's great from a gap analysis perspective as well to see, look, where are the risks in the business. And I think alongside that, what it also helps with is that conversation that we keep having about compliance as a mindset, security as a mindset. These things are no good if they're set and forget. And they're a real opportunity just to rethink, like you said, other processes in the business. It might be, we set up the structures here for storing data 3 years ago. We now have done an acquisition since, and we store different data.
Yeah.
Are the permissions on all of that data still right for our business?
Of course.
And just having those conversations as a result of looking at good compliance frameworks is a great tool for your business, and a great bolsterer, if that's the word, to your cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Alongside that, there's other tools that we use from a compliance perspective. Vulnerability assessments. It's not just about patching the software on your computers, but it's looking at what software is vulnerable. Where are there weak points in our systems and data, and also about measuring again or checking the continued effectiveness of that compliance. The one thing that you probably shouldn't do is mark your own homework.
No.
And so we, as the IT provider to our partners, we're putting all of these measures in place, but let's not test them ourselves. Let's get somebody else to do the testing to then make sure that it is as robust as it possibly could be. And again, back to mindset. Don't just test it once, test it often, repeat the testing, do it every month, change the testing up, do more in-depth testing every 6 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of that involved in compliance as a platform for us. And then a couple of other just sort of supplementary tools really that sometimes kick into that governance of data piece when we talk governance, risk and compliance. But let's look at perhaps the encryption of emails.
Yeah.
Built into Microsoft 365, we're encrypting data at rest. When it stores in Microsoft data centers, it's all encrypted, and that's great. But let's maximize the encryption whilst that data is in transit.
Yeah.
If we're sending something sensitive with maybe, from a GDPR perspective, protected characteristics in that email, people's dates of birth, people's personal information, anything that might be protected from a GDPR perspective, let's make sure that that data, when it's transmitted by email, is fully encrypted in transit as well as at rest. Again, encryption is probably a security tool, but we're using it here as a compliance output.
Yeah.
And similarly, the last piece on that then, I think, is archiving as well. It's making sure that the data that you've got remains available for as long as you need it to be. As a counter to that, GDPR as a framework, don't keep it longer than you need to. But archiving that data in a manageable way so that you as a business can take data from emails, data from Teams messages, data that comes in via different systems that you use that you pay for on a subscription basis. Let's grab Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Ecosphere. All of this stuff is being centrally archived for the business so that from a compliance perspective, it's searchable, it's indexable, it's auditable. We can backtrack where we need to from a compliance perspective. And that, I think, is compliance as a platform for us.
Definitely. Yeah. Look, lots to delve into there. And I thank you again, Mike, for the time. Very interesting. Very thorough topic to cover. Yeah, thanks so much. If you want to hear any more on managed compliance, I'm sure we'll be in touch with our current partners with some of the products available. If you want to check us out on socials and on our website, please do. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks.